to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with you. In the words of Carl Jung, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awaken. All right, today's music is called Retro National, like financial. Here in Santa Cruz, we have the delay for tax dues. We're all doing our taxes due for October 18th. Thank you very much from the floods last winter. Retro National. We all know that dreams can galvanize your creativity. Today we'll meet an author who has published 3 dream-inspired fantasy novels. Author Donna Glee Williams, PhD, is our guest, and her latest book is called The Night Field. Plus we'll have music by Lynn Morgan Rosser. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast. You can subscribe, rate, and review to get people to help them find the show, but most importantly, tell your friends. We are on a mission to get people talking about dreams, and you can always say, I'm listening to this podcast, The Dream Journal. You can find archives at Apple Podcasts and Spotify, also ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. We are only going back till about September on archives right now, unfortunately, because we're having some issues with the KSQD server, but there are a good number of shows available. We are also on PRX, so you can go back till about August on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. If you subscribe there, look us up. All right. I'm just going to say a few words about my dream this morning, that I am on a tight wire doing some acrobatic performance, and down below me are children playing. I would much rather be down there with the kids, but somehow I'm up there on the tight wire, smiling, doing my show. And so it's just a reminder for me to get down there with the kids. And notice that would be a lot more fun. So let's say hello to Donna Glee Williams.
Hi, Catherine. It's good to be with you today.
Great to have you on the air. So this is from Donna Glee. When Donna Glee first met Jeremy Taylor, she was already a writer, but other than her doctoral dissertation, she'd never written in any long form. During her 17 years of dream work with him, she wrote 3 novels, seeded by dreams. His fingerprints are particularly high on her latest, The Night Field. You can go to her webpage, donnagleewilliams.com, or look for her book. Again, it's called The Night Field. Her other 2 books are The Braided Path and Dreamers. So, Donna Glee, novels based on dreams. Say a little bit more about that. Was it the dream that created the whole novel, or was it just the sense of the novel? What got you started?
Well, it was even a bit more of a process thing than that. When I first met Jeremy Taylor, my primary mentor in Dreamwork, that was over 20 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I was at an intensive week-long event he was doing for the University of Creation Spirituality, mm-hmm. that I had been guided to by strong intuitive guidance that was really unusual in my life. And I wound up there at one of his dream classes, and afterwards I shyly approached him, saying, this isn't about one dream, it's about a theme in almost all of my dreams, which is difficulty getting to water. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me about that? And he was so generous. And he said, absolutely, while I'm teaching here, I'm yours. And he sat down and had a conversation with me about the different forms of difficulty getting to water took in my dreams. And after we had that conversation, I knew the path for me was to do more of that kind of work. And I asked him, is there any way we could do this at a distance? Because I live in North Carolina. He was based in California. And of course, this was pre-pandemic, before we were all so accustomed to doing things around the planet just at will. And he said, yes, absolutely. And that started a relationship that went on for 17 years until his death. I mean, our last phone call, it was more about his situation than mine, was just a few days before he died.
Oh, wow.
And during that process, a lot of things happened. But the first was my book, The Braided Path, which is sort of a wonderful and gentle exploration of, and it wasn't consciously this, but it turned out to be exploration of a world in which there was no evil or even human brokenness. What kind of lives and tensions would be in the lives of people that lived in a system that really worked. And then the second one came from a very specific challenge he gave me. He said, because he had worked with me on many of my stories, my poetry, all of that got into the Dreamwork with him. And some came from the Dreamwork with him. But he said, you've never written anything about your experience of working in a large bureaucracy.
Oh.
Well, yes, I hadn't even thought that a fantasy writer might work a story out of large bureaucracy. But my second novel, Dreamers, was directly an answer to that challenge. And in fact, it started with writing the scene of doing Dreamwork with Jeremy, but sort of translating it out of our world into a fantasy world where a young woman was laying in a sacred space, a chamber dedicated to dreaming, while there was a scribe sitting there ready to take down the dream she brought back. And as I explored that scene, I developed the novel Dreamers, which also enfolded the issues of bureaucracy and power. And so after having written a book that had no evil, I came to a book where there was a bad guy, some moral cowardice, and then came the last one, The Night Field, where I just really began to feel like I must be a writer in total moral decline, because it's a whole evil system that I tackle in that. And that one was the last one that I had the joy of sharing with him. And his primary gift in that, the overarching gift, was drawing to my attention the fact that it was capturing a moment in human history when humans went from simply receiving the gifts of the Great Mother to actually plowing and planting and essentially forcing the Great Mother to deliver what we wanted. And that was probably a huge psychic trauma for humanity to move from one state to the other. And my book captures that. It has side by side two cultures, one that lives in sustainable harmony with their environment, and one that is more like a contemporary force culture based on monoculture, agriculture, and human oppression. So they have all. When Jeremy died, it was like I didn't know how I could ever write again. The Dreamwork had been so entwined with my creative life. And one of the things that he had said to me in the last few years that we'd been working together, as I was struggling with what my vocation should be, he said several times, you could just hang out your shingle and do what I do. Right. He said, the apprenticeship you've had with me, which added up to 17 years. Yeah. The apprenticeship you've had with me is more substantial than what we do in the training programs. So at that point, it didn't really speak to my need to be doing that with other folks. But, when the pandemic came and we were all casting around for what gifts can we offer each other while we sit safely in our houses, one that came to me was to begin to do Dreamworks online. First one group and then another and then another. And, now it's one of the great joys of my life is to do Dreamwork with other folks, many of whom are creatives or become creatives during the process. And part of our journey, I guess my predominant approach is what is often called projective dream work. But, I also bring Gestalt and Sonoy in. And Gestalt, of course, is very interesting to writers because we often will use something very much like Gestalt head hopping to explore characters or explore situations that we're writing. And Sonoy is very on target for creatives because of the question, if you were to make or enact something this week to honor that dream, what would it be?
Okay, well, that certainly fits in with the creativity.
Yes. So that is where we often wind up. And in fact, because I am a writer and have been an editor at many stages in my life, another question we add, if this were my dream, what form would it take? Would it be a movie script? Would it be a sonnet? Would it be a haiku? Just to play that out.
Right.
And the other thing is, of course, the thing that I really imbibed from Jeremy Taylor, the idea that dreams are sometimes dreamed for others.
Oh, yeah.
That when people have been doing dream work together for a while, often the gift will be for someone else in the group.
So is there a clue there? That how do you know when a gift is for another person? Something I've wondered about before.
I think that I am clued by energy. Like I'm thinking of a time recently when one of my dreamers told a dream, did the dream work, and I was aware of just an upboil of energy in someone else. Then after we got it tucked in for the first person, then I just turned to the other person and worked her inner version of that dream just for her, And then there's also an experience I had with another dream worker of receiving the same thing. a fellow dream worker by the name of Jay Joslin had a very powerful dream about Medusa that just activated me very profoundly. And I asked his permission. Well, actually, it was more jocular than that. I was saying, Jay, if you don't write this, I'm going to. And he said, go for it. And I did. And I wrote a short story and then realized, oh, my goodness, how do you credit a short story? You've written it. Jay dreamed it. And, I submitted it under both of our names. And it's going to be coming out in psychological perspectives, I think this summer, under both of our names, because, one person dreams, one person writes. I think that's teamwork.
That's a collaboration. Well, that brings me back to the question, which is kind of the topic of creativity and dreams. And you said you have a lot of creatives in your groups. And what do you, what kinds of things do you do to sort of enhance the support that Dream has for this level of creativity?
Well, I think that first is to just do the basic respectful exploration of the dream. And then I often phrase this as just a hypothetical because I don't want to lay weight and pressure on people. That's not what they come for. And some of my folks work in forms that actually take quite a long time to develop the art. Some people just sketch or can write very quickly, but I've got textile artists and other folks that do time-consuming.
Well, certainly a novel is
media.
Extremely time-consuming.
Yes, but when you start writing, you're just it's just you and the page, and you don't have to worry about dyeing the materials and find all of that. So it's just a hypothetical. If you were going to, what might you do? And if you were going to create a ritual of this, what might that look like? And just get that hypothetical. And then the other thing I do, and I really encourage folks to add this to group dream practices, is that if somebody does make a poem or a story, that there is a place in that group for it to be read and listened to, because that is another stage of honoring the dream and its work. I really don't think it needs to stop when we finish the dream and say, thanks to the dream source.
I love that, to bring it back into a later group and share. I've had people bring art into my groups or poetry that they've written about a dream. And so I think that's a wonderful thing to encourage people to do, is to bring it back to the group or whoever they're sharing dreams with as a way of honoring that. Another
thing we do that kind of, I think, supports the creativity juice is afterthoughts. Everybody in my groups have each other's emails, and when dreams evoke memories of poems or images or other formats that we can send each other, we do. We send them, and I'm an overeducated English major, so that often comes in the form of poems from me. But other people, have other connections too, and they are stirred during the dream work, and people whip out literary references and mythological texts and all of that. So it's a very enjoyable play.
Okay. I love that. So I wanted to follow up some of the themes that you've mentioned in the books that you wrote, the novels that you wrote. I had a question about the 3 novels. Are they all in the same universe? Is it a question of a trilogy?
No, I don't have a long enough attention span
Okay.
to do a trilogy.
Uh,
No, they're very different worlds.
okay.
The Night Field is set partly in a rainforest and partly in a dry, flat cropland that reminds me of West Texas or Andhra Pradesh, India, and the book Dreamers is set in a place that feels like it owes a debt to my travels in Turkey and Israel and Pakistan. And then the Braided Path, although it's definitely mountain, it feels almost like a Northern European world to me, although some of my friends have told me quite clearly that they experienced it as sort of indigenous American. So I guess in some ways I have left that open to the imagination of the people that read.
That could be good. But one thing that I understand that's in common is the idea of the hero's journey. And what does that mean for the hero's journey in your novels? And also the idea of the post-patriarchal world. Like, this is like you talked about the tension between the bureaucracy and the more essential culture. And wonder if you talk a little bit about those two ideas, a hero's journey and post-patriarchy.
Well, my quibbles with the hero's journey really emerged through writing The Night Field. I obviously I'm a fantasy writer. You know, I have just absolutely venerated the hero's journey since I first read The Hero with a Thousand Faces way back in my early 20s. And when I went to Washington, when they brought Jung's Red Book for the exhibit in Washington, you know, they had an exhibit case devoted to the hero's journey right there. So it's something that's been very much part of my life. And yet, when I was writing The Night Field, it kind of hobbled me. And as I labored my way through the book, I wasn't consciously thinking about it. But after, when I was looking back on it, I realized that the hero's journey is ripe for re-examination because it centers individualism in a world that needs to really decenter individualism.
True.
Our hero's journey as we move into our next stage of even surviving is going to have to look at how to embrace co-heroes. You know, Campbell's articulation of the hero's journey does acknowledge that the hero is probably going to meet some allies and helpers along the way, but it kind of trivializes them like some kind of, just temporary crutches or consultants.
Yes.
It doesn't make them full co-heroes and partners in the journey.
I love that.
It also does not embrace the fact that some heroes' journeys are not completed in the hero's own lifetime. We need to take into account the idea of multi-generation heroic quests. Like if you think about Martin Luther King Jr., he did not live to see Barack Obama in the White House, but John Lewis did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Moses didn't get to lead his people into the promised land.
Right.
What is that Joshua phrase? Did.
The phrase that comes to mind is pioneers don't get to live in the land.
Yes.
Don't always get to live in the land. I guess sometimes they do.
Well, and Frodo, doesn't get to live out his life in a healed Shire, but Sam does. So I think that the next visions of the hero's journey need to kind of make space for co-heroes and also acknowledge that even though this hero's journey that has us so deeply imprinted, probably going back to the time of the first hunters and the first gatherers that really did have to go out away from the safety of the group to bring back the good stuff. That also powered the first stages of colonialism, when, the European guys with the guns, germs, and steel went out on their quest to get the spices and the gold and the silver and the diamonds and the human beings that got swiped from other lands. Hero's journey has not always rolled in the direction of justice.
Good point.
And I think it's time that we start exploring, if we love it, exploring for how it needs to be brought up to date. Campbell articulated that 70 years ago. And we are still putting our stories and our popular culture products through that filter.
Absolutely.
And another issue about it is it ignores the fact that if somebody starts off on a hero's journey, someone also stays home. You got to look at the heroes staying as well.
The communities, the whole level of community support.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. Go ahead. One more thing.
Well, I wanted to say it also puts filters on our eyes. I mean, when you think about the epic, what we call the Epic of Gilgamesh, I guess this is going back to the point of co-heroes. The Epic of Gilgamesh is not the epic of one man. We have laid that title on it, but if you look at the story itself, it's the story of co-heroes doing their thing. But if we keep putting that individualism filter on things, that's all we see.
Okay. Well, I love that. This is a really revolutionary idea. I think it's a wonderful thing to really question about our understanding of what's meaningful in life. And so our guest today is Donna Glee Williams. Her new book is called The Night Field, and we're talking about dreams and creativity and really the remaking of society, or the unmaking, or bringing it back to something more sustainable. So we are going to come back real soon, and we're going to talk about using fantasy to address real-world issues. And also we're going to have a guest caller, Lynn Rosser, who is a musician who created some music for the book, and she will. We have some music to play for her. And so we will get to that as soon as we are done with our break. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. Okay, this is the Dream Journal. My name is Catherine Bell, and our guest today is Donna Glee Williams. We have John from Santa Cruz on line 2. Hey, John, thanks for calling.
I'm here. Relative to the way that we dream, there's a person, his name is Dan Levitan, and he wrote a book that said, that encompassed your brain on music. And they did functional MRIs on 2 people, one person who played music, the other person had nothing to do with music. They asked them the same questions, and the way that the person that played music, they accessed different portions of their brain as opposed to the ones who didn't play music. Kinesthetic, feeling, all that. So I wonder how that influences how we dream too, because it's going to, I think, go the same pathways. But music is such an important part of our life experience.
Absolutely, John. That's a wonderful observation. I have not read that study, and I've been interested in music, and it comes and goes in various times in my life. And I'm actually in a phase the last year or two of learning to play the ukulele and writing songs. And interesting to think that I'm using different parts of my brain now. I could totally see that.
Yeah, and even I wish if I could fund it in high schools. You would have to take a language freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. Hopefully 4 different languages, and music could be one of those languages because it is a language. And that would, because they say they're romantic languages, or who Mila Kunis is. She was on a phone conversation with her dad one time, and when she hung up, her friend said, "Are you mad at your dad?" She goes, "Oh no, I was telling him I love him." It's because of the different nature of the Russian language as opposed to French or Spanish or whatever. I think learning multiple languages would enable us to understand others' differences.
Interesting.
And I think that would be beneficial.
Wow. I love that proposal, John. I think that's fabulous. Donna Glee, do you have any comments about that? I know music's important to you.
I do. I think that idea of letting music be one of the required languages is also brilliant in terms of justice, because requiring languages, it's wonderful, and it completely favors the linear, logical, verbal gifts of some people. But music would be an area that many people who can't do the verbal, rational stuff easily can access music, and not just easily, but can thrive there. And I think that would be a form of educational justice, and would love to see that happen. So thank you for putting that idea out into the world, and I hope someone hears it.
Great.
One last thought.
Sure.
You remember that show? It was called Name That Tune.
Oh yes, I can name that tune in 4 notes.
How do we name that tune with 1 note? How do we do that?
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. All right, well, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, well, a comment from Rick here. Music is a high bandwidth form of transmitting nonverbal info. I agree with that. Thank you. This is my engineer, Rick Leffel. Absolutely. So I think we have Lynn back on the other line. So let's switch over to, this is Lynn Rosser from Asheville, North Carolina. And she created some music for the book. And so, hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Great.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. And maybe you guys, I'm not sure who wants to go first. What do you mean music for a novel? Is this, how does this come about? And then we have a clip. We'd like to play some clip from some of the music that Lynn has written.
Sure.
Lynn,
music from a novel. Yes. Well, and just to pick up the tail end of what was just said, one other element of education in music is that when you learn music, you activate multiple regions of the brain at the same time, and you coordinate them. So requiring music is actually a wonderful idea to be able to enhance everyone's sort of general brain interconnectivity and power. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw those 2 cents in. But
I know, it's beautiful the way John just slipped right in there and picked up on some of these themes. Great.
So in terms of the novel, I was deeply inspired by Donna Glee's work and have known her for a long time. We're sort of creative companions, friendship over a long time, and I saw the novel develop. And I was kind of coming out of a place where I needed to begin doing some creative work again, and was ready to do some. And I just kind of asked her, hey, would it be okay if I took my deep inspiration that I have from your characters and your story and tried putting some songs to them.
Huh.
So that was kind of how it was born. We sort of talked about what that might look like, and I wanted to make sure that, I kind of had permission to do that.
Right.
First.
Right.
And to honor the work and what themes, would be important to her. And so it was kind of, in terms of that, was a collaborative thought process on it. And then I sort of took it and ran with it in my own direction. And my brilliant husband produced the songs for me, collaboratively also with my ideas and all of those things at Hall Reed Art Studio here in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
And that's how it was born.
Wonderful. Donna Glee, do you want to add anything to that, or should we go to the music?
Well, I do want to add that this almost seemed like a super, I was going to say supernatural, but even maybe transpersonal is more the word I'm looking for, as if this story exists in some other kind of imaginal space, and as if Lynn has access to the story there as a musician in the same way that I might have access to it as a writer. Because even though Lynn had read early drafts of this book, because I often go to her for support and good questions and conversation, when she started letting this music flow out of her, she really had not seen the book for years and didn't even need to see the book. It was like it was there. And at first I was like, oh, Lynn, don't you want to read the current version? And,
Right.
and then I thought, no, don't mess with this, like whatever she's onto, that's the true Dharma there. Let it go. So this is what came. And it was an amazing collaboration between her and the story, and her husband, Chris Rosser, and her son also contributed to the post-production work. So take a listen. It's pretty amazing.
One by one we make our way, getting closer every day. Back to the real. Some bridges take a generation to span the distance of our minds, like weaving trees across the waters. It takes the work of lives and time. A twist, a turn, a branch, a bending, a living thing of hopes and dreams, of love and peace, unending, reaching out over the seas, between you and me, us and eternity. One by one we make our way.
Okay, beautiful song. Let's leave it maybe playing just a little bit in the background. And that's gorgeous. So Lynn, how did this music come to you? Do you have anything else you want to say about how you hear that song? It's such a beautiful, catchy song.
Thank you. Well, for me, a lot of times things start from an emotional place, and that taps into sort of that intuitive kind of realm. And as Donna Glee was saying, this story lives for me in the imaginal realm, and it has for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And her characters, they're very much accessible to me in that sense. And to me, that's kind of almost akin to where to the dreamscape in some ways. There's that imaginal realm is very similar. In other words, and I love tapping into that and to feel that and to imagine it and to bring myself into the environment of her story, and from there try to work with the themes that she and I talked about, the first song is Listening to Trees, about getting that feeling of expanding out from the small self out into the larger world, through meditation, which is really what that is about, and touching what's called the flow, which is sort of the chi of this world, and the energy of this world, and expanding out that way. So just things like that are meaningful to me, both as a, on a personal level, but also related directly to the story. It was a real joy to be able to connect that and to have this connection with Donna Glee as well.
Excellent.
So.
And what about your dream world? Do you also pay attention to your dreams, Lynn? Is that something that interests
yes.
you? Okay.
I do pay attention to my dreams. I throughout my life, I've been inspired and sometimes warned by things in my dreams, and just that is something that I've always paid attention to. Kind of, I've had a few sort of dreams that told me something was coming, kind of thing. And it was different than this particular circumstance, but whether an illness or something like that. So I definitely pay attention when my dreams come and they tap me on the shoulder. I definitely listen.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Lynn, so much. And Donna Glee, is there anything else you have for Lynn you want to share with Lynn here?
Just undying appreciation. And I guess I would also say, just in terms of folks who might be shy about playing in each other's sandbox, that it is incredibly rewarding if you find someone. I mentioned already the collaboration of me and a fellow dream worker, Jay Joslin, and now you're hearing about a collaboration with me and another on the music. That if you can find people that will share the play with you, it keeps you rolling. I am by nature, I guess I call it lazy, but there is something about having others there with you that can stimulate and can really keep you rolling and support you. And just the other day, Lynn gave me a talking to about, we have to hear Maroc's story. I've written Pinpoy's story in the Night Field, but we have to hear Maroc. And I really heard her say that, and I don't know what will come. That's always, you just don't know what you will be offered from the realm of story and dream. But that kind of lifting up and stimulating, and also we are often, accountability buddies with getting the work done.
Yep.
It is definitely one of the things that we can offer each other in the creative life.
Oh, fantastic. So Lynn, do you have any web page where people can go to find this music, or is there a way that this music will be released, or people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. One is I do have a website, and it's lynnmorganrosser.com. That's one thing together, lynnmorganrosser.com. And this music is also available for streaming on all streaming platforms. You can find Songs for the Night Field by Lynn Morgan Rosser on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon, all of those places. So I'm out there, and I'd love to also hear from you if you want to share anything with me.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lynn.
And Catherine, I'd like to say that the way that we are supporting musicians in our world now is very fluid. It's changing. Like in the past, if you wanted to support a musician, you would just go buy their CD or something. Like you buy my book if you want to support my work. Well, to support Lynn's work, you go to Ko-fi. It's K-O-F-I, right, Lynn?
Yes.
Okay.
You can find Lynn Morgan Rosser at Ko-fi.com and buy me a coffee.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for support.
That is how we are supporting our musicians now. And Lord knows they need it. They're human beings too.
Absolutely.
They need food, they have families.
They do. Thank you. That's wonderful how you guys support each other. All right. Thank you, Lynn. Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Okay. Bye now.
Bye.
So Donna Glee, let me mention your webpage too. We'll mention it again, donnagleewilliams.com.
Yes.
And I also wanted to just get to this particular topic to touch on in the last few minutes here of using the fantasy to address real-world issues. And, this is something that I really love about fantasy and science fiction, and it's a whole nother conversation about the distinction between fantasy and sci-fi. But in any case, to use these imaginal realms to comment on real-life issues, I wondered if you want to say a little bit about that.
Well, I can say some about my experiences with that. And one is that I have been involved for decades now with a project called the Eco Tipping Points Project. And you can find that online. That is a project that is collecting real-world ecological restoration success stories and analyzing them to understand the patterns of what makes for success in healing environmental wounds. That is real science that has to do with real waking world issues. And as part of that, I got involved with a project in India where some extremely poor farmers had gotten essentially addicted to the use of pesticides, to where they could not farm without the use of heavy pesticide inputs. And then they, like other addicts can, kicked the habit and became pesticide free. And they transformed their health, their economic situation. I mean, they're still poor, but they are not in enchained slavery based on their economic situation, and they're not needing to put their children into indentured labor anymore and things like that. And this has a lot to do with the principles of eco-tipping points, the way they were able to do that. And those principles are deeply, deeply infused throughout my book, The Night Field. So deeply infused that, in fact, the theoretician that created the eco-tipping points theory, whose name is Dr. Gerald Martin, wrote a set of questions for discussion that are on my website, donnagleewilliams.com, for readers of The Night Field that want to understand the real science behind this fantasy. So it is my hope that people who come for the story stay for the science.
Right.
And the other hope that I have is that many of us are triggered to resistance by certain things, or are triggered to a sense of paralysis by certain things. And when I write a book about pesticides without ever once using the word pesticide, I hope that I can trigger thinking that goes beyond any resistance or paralysis.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know,
very important stuff. Yeah,
just raising questions without hitting the knee-jerk reactions that certain terminology can put on the table, I think is valuable. And then finally, there is the fact that the pain caused by oppressive agriculture is in the real world huge. And that is not a story that I could fully accurately tell from my own personal experience. And I couldn't tell it at all without years of serious research. And when I situate some of those issues in a fantasy world, I hope that I can raise those questions without treading on other people's story that are theirs to tell.
All right. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm wondering, do you have a short passage that you'd like to read just to kind of send our listeners off?
I will read them the very opening of the night field, and you can let it trail off into nothingness if you run out of time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Twin posts straddle the broad path. A lintel beam hangs between them, marked with odd, faded symbols that give off the chilly feel of power. A ghost door? Some kind of gateway? Not a gateway. Nothing behind the post, nothing on either side. No walls, no fence, nothing for a gate to enter or exit. Nothing but more empty land, flatter than any natural thing. The bootmen hustle me through between the posts, and right then the light fades from the sky. Is it only that we have crossed over just as the sun went down? I do not think so. There is something dark here, darker than simple night.
Well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Donna Glee Williams. This is a real pleasure to talk to you. Good luck.
It's been a delight.
On your next novel.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org in case you want to call in. Podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It keeps us growing when you subscribe, rate, and review. I am Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE @ksqd.org, and can follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, Tony Rosimano. The intro music is Water Over Stones. Outro is Everything, both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
All the husbands and wives, all the boys and the girls, and everyone in the world knows that so much is wrong, but much more is right. We see in the darkness by shine.